with the Mai in a hat for our morning walk with Isabel, who Maya calls Itty. And I'm looking around these beautiful hills, feeling a little bit of sadness in my heart because our morning walks will soon be in a very different neighborhood. Well, I want to speak about experiential astronomy. Maya and I walked out of our house this morning and we saw Mama Moon. And remember how Mama Moon had that strange straight line in her body, baby? Moon is such a curvy being, so it's kind of weird when we get to the Olis. Those 2 times a month when the moon is square sun and you get that strange straight line across the moon's face, whether it's a waxing half moon or if the moon is on the wane at half moon time in Hawaii. It's a time known as the Olis, and they say just give people space because it's a time for introspection, and sometimes we're not entirely nice when we take a look to the shadows inside, It's interesting to find that kind of energetic correspondence between that tradition and Hawaii, where they have a different name for every 29 or 30 days of moon phase, and the astrological tradition where we say squares bring tension, but also hopefully release. Anyway, sometimes I follow charts, religiously, and sometimes not so much. I mean, I might look at transit charts all day because I'm in astrological sessions and counseling sessions with the clients that I'm so honored to connect with. But even then, I can look at a transit chart for right now 5 times and at the end of the day, just kind of forget and go back to Brett. But sometimes I'm waking up, I'm recording messages about the alignments of the day, and I'm really in it. It hasn't been that way recently. Hey, Izzy, let's go this way. Edie, come on, this. So I actually appreciate those times also, because what will happen is something like this morning where I'll pop outside and see the moon. The sun's about to rise, so we're still in the sect of the night with the moon as our sect light. And I see that strange line in the moon's face, and it's like, oh, okay, moon is square the sun. It's a half moon. Now, is moon waxing or waning? Well, we see moon in the sunrise sky. So that's the waning half moon, or the closing side of the cycle, when the moon is closing in on the sun. Now, I know that the sun has recently ingressed Taurus. Interesting to have Easter, which should be an east equinox thing, happening with the sun in Taurus. But anyway, I think I'll be speaking about that on Storytelling Hour this week with a wonderful guest historian to speak about Easter and the sacred astronomy of this solar cult. Anyway, tale for another time. Tune in Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Right. Where did I want to be? So I noticed that the moon was square the sun. Of course, I know that if I see a half moon in the midnight sky, then that is a waxing half moon. But if I see a half moon in the sky when the sun's about to rise, that's the waning half moon. And if the sun's in Taurus, well, then that means the moon is in Aquarius. Yes. And, well, what does that mean since the sun is in early degrees of Taurus? Oh, that means the moon's conjunct Pluto and opposite Mars, Because one thing I certainly do know is that Mars, after this long return to and extended bathe in the waters of the sign called Cancer, Mars has now re-entered Leo, the place where Mars stationed retrograde many, many, many months ago. And we all know that Pluto has fully committed to a long stay in tropical Aquarius now, right? So Mars has returned to Leo and is opposing Pluto. And with the sun here in the early degrees of Taurus, we have a very strong T-square, right? So a square and a square, an opposition with a planet at the midpoint. The opposition would be the Leo Mars, opposite Aquarius Pluto, and right in between those early degrees of those fixed signs would on one side be Scorpio and on the other side Taurus, right? So Taurus Sun, Leo Mars, Aquarius Pluto, and I decided to record here, even though I should give my attention to my baby girl. You good? You want to smell this roses? It's Taurus time, baby. The roses need our noses. Right, so we saw the moon this morning. It's like, oh, that moon's with Pluto. And this really strong T-square energy is in effect. Hey, Lori. Hey, Nathan. Right, so look at these roses, baby. Here, let's show y'all this northern hemisphere view. Oh. And there's a bit of a sadness in my heart because this daily walk, which we do in the morning time to let mama get some sleep, typically after some long nights of several wake-ups. These morning walks are soon gonna happen in a whole other place. So I already noticed that place has roses too, at least in this season. The roses need our noses. Escape the rat race tendencies. Find your way to the grace of Earth's pace, the teachings of the Tauresian mysteries. Oh, and the sun and these early degrees of Taurus. Oh my gosh, it's my half birthday. It's my half birthday, baby. Or at least my solar opposition. Yay, thanks, baby. Thank you, my. Yay. Oh, my. And the sun's in Taurus. It's about to be May. Do you know who the month of May is named for? Maya. The same one that you're named for, the mother of Hermes. Where were we? Right. So, so first of all, with this really strong T-square, something's going to give, something's going to shift. Maybe something in your life. I've been wondering what it would be in mine because, you see, I was born with the sun in the first degree of tropical Scorpio. And so for some time now, I have been entertaining a life cycle activation, a initiation of great change called Pluto square sun, right? Pluto now in Aquarius, square to that place of space where the sun was when I was born, that place called Scorpio. And the paranoia hairs straighten out on the back of my neck because I hear, "Hi, you are currently being recorded." Yes, I am. At least at this time, intentionally so. Anyway, Scorpio Joe. So what would a Pluto transit to my Scorpio sun entail? What would this great change be? It's hard not to fall into fear in the play of astrology, you know. Well, my life has greatly transformed. You know why? You're looking at her, yo. Baby came through. And miraculously so. What a wonderful time to speak about resurrection. Because there were 2 babies who were not born. A couple miscarriages before Maya made her way into this world. I'll be speaking about that a bit, by the way, on Wednesday at my sister Hillary's Cultivate Foundations Summit. Type some of that stuff online and find your way to it. Anna and I are going to speak about aligning with the moon for fertility times, but most importantly, aligning intentions. And I'm also going to speak about the challenge that many dads have when making babies feels like work instead of play. Probably leave you in the other room for that part of the discussion, baby. All right, anyway, so why would Pluto square Sun, for me, be the birth of a baby? Well, a couple of things there. One, in many of the house systems, not all of them, like I like to cast Placidus house charts, which places my Scorpio Sun in the 6th of my Gemini rising design. Scorpio is, after all, the 6th sign of Gemini. Going so deep into the underworld might just make Gemini ill. Anyway, in a porphyry house system chart, my Scorpio Sun's in the 5th. That's true for Coke houses as well. Never say Scorpio and Coke in the same sentence. You might have a relapse. Anyway, sorry. Campanus puts my Sun in the 6th, as does Regiomontanus. In equal houses, the Sun is in the 5th. So, maybe some of those house systems that place my Scorpio Sun in the 5th are most supported by the truth that this Pluto square Sun has brought me this amazement. Now, it's hard to get a clean experiment in astrology, right? I also had Pisces Saturn transiting my Virgo Venus. And in the Gemini rising design, the 5th is Libra. And so many would suggest Venus represents my baby and fertility and other things like this. Well, I also have, though Virgo is the 4th of the Gemini design, the IC, the Imam Cheli, the bottom of the heavens, the roots of the chart when I was born, are in the sign of Leo, right? The place of the sun. So obviously, I've had really significant shifts in home, family, right? Part of the truth of the IC and delineations of the astrological 4th. We can take that a little further. Leo is the 3rd sign of the Gemini design, the sign of siblings, and just the weirdness of the outer world has probably caused more tension between my sister and myself than ever before, but we're also crazy close and we'll make it through that, no doubt. In fact, we were at her house for an Easter brunch yesterday and it's all good. I was a bit concerned because this week, I think tomorrow, I was meant to be traveling to Arizona for a retreat, which sounds wonderful, especially getting to connect with stars and true dark skies. But I was a bit concerned because, it is hard not to fall into fear space sometimes in the astrological arts, right? And this long-standing transit of Pluto to my natal Scorpio Sun would be highlighted or perhaps activated or taken to a whole other level with Mars in Leo also squaring my Scorpio Sun, right? So Leo, Mars, Aquarius, Pluto in opposition, squaring my Scorpio Sun, and now the Taurus Sun in that figure to make a full grand cross in the fixed signs. Fix yourself to fix the world. Well, one of my concerns was just the dangers of travel, airplanes and the like. More concerning at this time than it has been for some of us in years before. Whether that's wrong or right. But also that I was going to share and speak at my first teacher's retreat. And sometimes that's challenging for me because he's very specific about his particular astrological approach. So some of the things I have to share are welcome there and some are not. And so I kind of fear my inability to not share things I'm so excited and passionate about and how that might cause some discord. Anyway, that retreat was canceled. So sad not to go to Arizona and see the stars, though I will say it's of course getting more difficult to leave home than it was before because you're this amazing baby girl. But also because suddenly we're moving. And there's been the vision of that, especially in my partner's beautiful heart, for many, 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 many moons, because we live far from town. I love the quiet and the hills and the trees and our view of sunset every day of the year when clouds allow, and sacred Mount Tamalpais, and even a little bit of the bay's waters seen from our windows upstairs. Speaking of, hey Isabel, we're not going to go that way. Come on. Come on. Let's watch the dog come back down the hill. Come on, Izzy. Here comes Iddy, baby. Iddy. Our house is up that hill. Smart dog. I appreciate your urge for efficiency. She also wants to get away from the German Shepherd down there. Anyway, suddenly we're moving. We've already put in a deposit on a rental space. We're moving on May 1st. I'm having a lunar return the day before. And Maya was born with her sun at the same degree as my Gemini moon. So lunar returns have become twice as special for me since her birth about 10 months and 11 months ago. And, you know, where do we find home in the chart? And the moon might be a key if we were just trying to tune into those mysteries planetarily. But of course, traditionally, we're looking at the fourth. Now, the fourth whole sign of the Gemini rising design is Virgo. And so we'd look to Mercury. And Mercury now in Aries is about to oppose my natal Libra Mercury. But I think this is kind of another key expression in this case of quadrant houses working brilliantly, because as I shared before, though Virgo is the fourth whole sign or equal house of my Gemini rising design, the IC at the moment of my becoming was in the sign of Leo, right? Said to be the house of the sun. So as my sun sign, not my daughter, my Scorpio sun is now being activated by Aquarius Pluto, and right now the moon on one side, Leo Mars on the other, and for a short amount of time while I'll be packing boxes, the Taurus sun in opposition, I'm packing boxes, moving house, feeling blessed that this retreat was canceled actually. I had some fears as I mentioned before, but mostly because we got like 9 days to pack up a house and choose what we're keeping and what we're storing and what we're trying to sell. And we're trying to sell a house. You buying? And it's kind of tricky to do so right now more than it was a few months ago. And I'll tell you, I did a podcast with Adam Summer where I was talking about the lunar standstill and the North Node going to 0 Aries and all these things that happen in the climates and the mundane reality. And he's like, oh yeah, in the housing market. And I was like, oh wait, what? Oh, right. And it was funny, I was tuning in recently to the last time I had a landlord or a landlady, and it was like 18.6 years ago, because I found the chart for when I bought a house, the first house I've ever owned, that was in Seattle, Washington, and it was when the North Node is in the late degrees of Pisces, where it is now. So that was an interesting thing to see. Well, they say the housing market dips. Look, I'm not giving any advice here, but when the North Node moves from tropical Aries back into Pisces every 18.6 years, and it was really true last time, I bought high, and then the whole Freddy crash, right? 2006, 7, 8. And which, by the way, I mean, fortunately for those terrible, corrupt loans, I was able to get in and get a house, and then I was able to shift from that really scary deal to a fixed mortgage shortly before everything completely fell apart. But then that house was underwater. I mean, not literally. That's just an interesting thing to consider with a Scorpio sun ruling a Leo, I see. But anyway, I was in a place where I had negative equity. Is that a thing? And I would have been stuck in that house through financial considerations if I wasn't stuck there anyway. And eventually things turned around and I was able to sell the house. And she earned $1 or $2 once I met your mom and fell in love and chose to return to California, where my sister lives and my mother lives in the other direction. And so it's nice to be back here where I can see California stars. And going to be a little bit less of those California stars as we are moving to town. We're downsizing, cutting our space in half. We're going to be in the heart of local light pollution. I mean, I guess we won't be right in San Francisco, but we're going to be a lot closer and closer to Oakland and in Berkeley. So things are changing, and I'm really feeling it, because I walk around here and just see these green hills and hawks and deer, and I'll miss it. But this is a great place to be locked down and isolated. I think for all of us, Maya was born in our house. Izzy came to us in this house. Our kitty cat Chase left. So many wonderful memories with Anna and Koa and our team. But we're moving to a place where we'll be just blocks away from 2 of Koa's best friends. And it's going to be nice for Maya to grow up where there's more babies around, and hopefully I'll be out teaching at night and nearby parks. And so I just need to embrace that stuff, because in a way, coming out here to a place closer to nature and horizons, maybe this one that leaned a little bit more towards me, and being back close to where things are happening will lean a little closer to mom and probably also the kids. So time for me to embrace that. Right, baby? All right, and let me turn this thing off so we can just finish our walk and have a conversation about boob and my. Yeah. Hey, one more interesting thing is I've been really tuning into following the sun before sunrise like this. Although I guess the sun is in this cloudy sky already. But anyway, we're together before the sun comes up. And I was born with the moon in the first house, which is where the sun is before the sun rises. And the steersman of that first house, the guide of that first house, because Gemini rising, that's Mercury, in the 5th, in the house of kids. And in the sign of Libra. So every morning before the sun rises, we're hanging out. And I'm picking out some clothes. and getting my Libra fashion thing on and having the most wonderful conversations. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for spending some time with me. Remember to live your astronomy experientially. If you feel like supporting the work, you will find me at GeminiBrett.com, where you could offer a donation if you'd like, schedule a session or a soul song, and find out more about our constellations community. Thanks for spending some time with me. See you in space. Say bye-bye, baby. Do you want to wave? Yay! That's new.